Okay, so uh, I have to admit something. Usually when I prepare for a deep dive, I sort my research into two very distinct piles on my desk.
Let me guess. The real science and the fake science.
I was trying to be polite about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
basically, pile A is the hard science and psychology pile. You know, neurons, cognitive behavioral therapy, very tangible stuff. And pile B is
Yeah.
well, let's call it the esoteric pile.
The woo-woo pile.
Exactly, the woo-woo pile. Energy fields, vibes of the universe. We usually treat these as totally different languages. I mean, if you're a psychologist, you stay in pile A. If you're a healer, you stay in pile B.
Right, and never the twain shall meet.
But today, the source material we're looking at basically takes pile A and pile B, smashes them together, and says, hey, these are actually the exact same map, just read in different languages.
It is a really fascinating convergence. We are analyzing a pretty dense visual breakdown titled The Alchemy of Individuation. And you're completely right. It proposes a unified theory of sorts.
Unified theory is a good way to put it.
It connects the analytical psychology of Carl Jung, who is essentially the grandfather of deep psychological shadow work, with the biophysics of reconnective healing, or RH.
So just to set the stage here for you listening,
Yeah.
we're going to see how abstract concepts like your inner child or your shadow, which I usually think of as just metaphors, might actually be literal frequencies.
Precisely. The mission for this deep dive is to explore that exact intersection. The source argues that what Jung called the process of individuation, that journey to becoming your true self, is chemically and physically identical to the process of reconnective healing.
Which is mind-blowing.
We are going to try and translate the shadow and the persona into the language of physics, light, and information. So we're putting the human psyche into a purely energetic framework.
I love this. So if you're listening and you love psychology, stick around because we're going to validate some of those concepts with actual physics.
And if you're curious about energy work, but maybe a little skeptical of the fluff, definitely stick around. Because this gets into the hard mechanics of it.
Let's start with the map. The source starts with one of Jung's most famous concepts, which is the persona.
Right. So in classic Jungian terms, the persona is the mask. It's the face we wear to meet the world.
The customer service voice.
Exactly. It's how we act to be liked, to be professional, to fit in. It is totally necessary for social survival. But Jung was very clear about one thing. It is not us.
It's the version of me that nods politely when I actually wildly disagree.
We all have one. But here is where the source material shifts the lens in a big way. It redefines the persona through the physics of reconnective healing. It calls the persona social resonance.
Social resonance. That sounds, I don't know, it sounds noisy.
It is noisy in a way. The source describes it as low-frequency, restrictive social resonances that limit authentic expression.
Restrictive.
Yeah, think about the physics of that for a second. If you are acting a certain way just to match the people around you, to fit in with your colleagues or your family, you are literally tuning your personal energy field to a frequency that isn't yours.
Wow.
You are matching the static of the environment.
That's such a great image. It's
Yeah.
like I have my own clear radio station, but I'm forcing my dial to tune in to the static-filled station next door just because that's what my neighbors happen to be listening to.
And that restriction costs you energy. It limits your bandwidth. In this model, the persona isn't just a psychological pretense. It's a literal lowering of your frequency. You are restricting the flow of light and information to maintain a resonance that simply isn't authentic.
You know, that actually explains why faking it feels physically exhausting.
Yeah.
You're spending real physiological energy to dampen your own signal.
You are engaging in destructive interference with your own broadcast.
Okay, so the persona is the low-vibe mask, the frequency imbalance. Now let's talk about the big one, the shadow.
The basement of the psyche.
Yeah, in psychology, this is the repressed stuff, the anger, the jealousy, the trauma we shove into the basement and lock the door because we just do not want to see it.
The parts of ourselves we completely refuse to identify with. But look at how the source maps this to the body. It describes the shadow not as a thought, but as energetic blockages.
So wait, it's not just a memory floating around in my brain?
No, the source is very specific here. It says, these repressed psychological traits manifest as biofunctional disruptions in the physical body. It literally calls it suppressed shadow energy.
That feels huge.
Yeah.
It implies that if I'm repressing a traumatic memory or a dark part of my personality, I'm not just creating mental anxiety. I'm creating a literal roadblock in my biology.
Correct. We tend to think of the shadow as a ghost in the machine, but this model suggests the shadow actually breaks the machine. or at least it deeply disrupts its function.
Like a kink in a garden hose.
Exactly. If you hold on to anger for 20 years, that energy has to go somewhere. It becomes a knot in the biofield, which eventually disrupts the physical tissue. It turns into what we might call high entropy zones in the body, areas of total disorder.
So dealing with the shadow isn't just about feeling better emotionally. It's about physical maintenance. It's plumbing.
It is biophysics. And moving further into the Jungian map, the source also mentions the Anima and Animus, the internal representation of the opposite gender within us. Jung said we need to integrate these to be whole.
And how does the source translate that into energy?
It maps this to polarity balance. It's about the energetic balancing of masculine and feminine polarities within the system. You need both positive and negative poles for a circuit to run properly. If you are rejecting one side, you just don't have a complete circuit.
Okay, so we have the map. We have the mask, which is the low frequency, the blockage, which is the shadow, and the need for polarity balance. Now let's unpack the tool.
The reconnective healing.
Right, the source talks about reconnective healing as the method to fix all this. But what exactly is it? For someone who doesn't know quantum physics, is it just electricity?
This is a crucial distinction and probably the most technical part of the source. It defines the medium of RH not just as energy, but as a full spectrum consisting of three things: energy, light, and information.
Energy, light, and information. Break that down for me. Keep it simple.
I'll try. Energy is the heavy stuff. The source calls it physical refraction. It's the part we actually feel physically. Light, on the other hand, is described as the biophotonic flow between the practitioner and the client.
Biophotonic. That means light produced by the human body. Right.
Yes, humans literally emit light particles. The interaction happens at that subtle level. But then there's information. This is the most abstract, but arguably the most important part. Information is defined as data from universal intelligence.
Okay, universal intelligence. I can feel some listeners rolling their eyes right now. Are we talking about a deity here, or are we just jump-starting a battery?
Neither really. Think of it less like a battery and more like a computer. We are downloading software updates.
Okay, I track with that.
Information here simply means order. It is the original blueprint of how the system is supposed to run. When your computer is glitching, you don't need more electricity. You don't need to plug it into a bigger wall outlet.
Right, you don't need more energy.
Exactly. You need the correct code. You need the information that restores the operating system to its proper state.
That makes total sense. So we are essentially restoring the original factory settings of the human body.
In a way, yes, it's a realignment. And this leads us to the role of the person actually doing the healing. The source has this chart comparing traditional healing to reconnective healing, and the differences are incredibly stark.
Yeah, I'm looking at here. Traditional healing, which I assume means things like Reiki or Qigong.
Generally, yes. Any modality where the healer is actively doing something.
It lists things under traditional, like directs energy and uses rituals and touch.
Right. In those modalities, the healer is the active agent. They are the mechanic trying to fix the engine. They are pushing energy here, pulling it there. They are diagnosing you, saying, oh, your liver energy is low, let me boost it.
But look at the reconnective healing column. It says, observes and witnesses. No rituals, no touch.
Observes and witnesses. That is the absolute key to this entire philosophy. The facilitator in RH is not a mechanic. They are a catalyst. They aren't trying to fix the client at all.
Then what are they doing?
They are opening a door or acting as a tuning fork, allowing the client's system to remember its own natural vibration.
It's weird, right? Doing nothing seems so much harder than doing something. I mean, if I'm paying for a session, I kind of want the practitioner to do something to me.
It is the fundamental difference between force and flow. If you try to force a system to heal, you are inadvertently introducing your own limitations into the equation. Your own persona or shadow gets in the way.
Oh, I see.
By simply witnessing you step out of the way. The source describes this process as moving from entropy to coherence.
Entropy is chaos, right? Things falling apart.
Yes. Trauma sickness, the shadow, these are all stored as disorder or entropy in the biofield. Through a process called frequency entrainment, the body reorganizes itself. It matches the higher order of the frequencies present during the session.
Is there an easy analogy for entrainment?
There's a classic one. Imagine a room full of pendulum clocks. They are all ticking at completely different speeds. Total chaos.
That's a sick body.
Right. Now imagine you introduce one very large, strong pendulum swinging with a steady, perfect rhythm into that room. You don't have to touch the small clocks. You don't have to adjust their gears.
Just let it swing.
Eventually, purely through the physics of resonance, they all start ticking together with big one. That is entrainment. The body naturally moves from the chaotic entropy of the shadow to the smooth order of coherence.
Okay, I could still hear the skeptics in the back of the room going, biophotonic flow, universal intelligence. Sounds lovely, but prove it. But the source actually includes a whole section on evidence-based results, and it gets kind of physical.
It really does. It mentions physical registers. These are involuntary movements that happen during a session. The source lists things like involuntary muscle movements and REMI, rapid eye movement.
Way like REM sleep,
Mm.
but they're wide awake.
Exactly. Their eyes start fluttering rapidly while they are completely conscious. The source explains this as the physical release of that suppressed shadow energy we talked about earlier. It's literally the body shaking off the biophysical blockages.
And there's this mention of time dilation, too. I found this part fascinating. Clients report that a 45-minute session feels like it only lasted a few minutes.
Yes, they enter what the source calls luminous states. It implies that when you step out of that social resonance, that low-frequency static of the persona, and you connect with the spectrum of light and information, you are stepping out of linear time. You are operating in a completely different state of consciousness.
Okay, but aside from feeling a time warp and twitching, what are the hard stats? What happens to the biology?
The source cites research on the autonomic nervous system. This is fascinating because it shows a simultaneous increase in autonomic arousal in both the practitioner and the client.
They sync up?
They sync up, but their energy levels go up together. Usually in relaxation therapies or meditation, you want autonomic arousal to go down. You want to calm the system down. But here the system is waking up. It's becoming more alive.
What about physical results? I see physical mobility on the list here.
Yes, studies showed a significant increase in range of motion and a sharp decrease in pain post-RH. It physically loosens the body. But the one that really caught my eye, and perhaps the most objective piece of evidence, is the plant growth.
Yes, the plants.
You cannot argue that a plant is experiencing a placebo effect. A geranium doesn't have a persona or a belief system.
It doesn't know it's being healed. It's just a leaf.
Exactly. The source notes that plants exposed to RH frequencies have significantly longer lifespans and a more than substantial increase in their vitality compared to control groups.
That is wild. I mean, if it works on a leaf, it's got to be doing something fundamental to the underlying biology. And there's also a mention of GDV, right? Gas discharge visualization.
Right, that is a specific technology that captures the human energy field. The source indicates that RH visibly balances this field. Using GDV, you can visually see the shift from entropy, which looks like holes or jagged spikes in the field, to coherence, which looks smooth and round and full.
So we have the Jungian map, the why, we have the RH mechanism, the how, and the scientific evidence, the proof. But now comes my favorite part, the so what section.
The application.
Yeah, why should you care about this on a Tuesday morning when you're late for work?
This is where we look at Jung's 5 factors of happiness, but interpreted through this energetic RH perspective, it gives us a real roadmap for living this stuff.
Let's run through them. Number 1 is physical and mental health.
Which we've touched on heavily. It's about restoring biofunctional balance. It's not just about taking a pill to suppress a symptom. It's about using that spectrum of light and information to get the autonomic nervous system running correctly at its base level.
Number 2 is relationships. And this one hit home for me. The source talks about fixing the non-local connection.
This is profound. Usually we try to fix relationships by changing our behavior or trying to change the other person.
Which never works.
Right, because that's working on the superficial level of the persona. The source says, true relationship healing dissolves the illusion of separation. By fixing your internal connection to the universal field, you automatically improve your external social bonds.
Explain that non-local part, though, for people who aren't familiar.
It means the connection exists entirely outside of physical proximity or verbal communication. If you are internally vibrating with coherence, you aren't vibrating with neediness or defense or anger. You become that steady pendulum in the room. You improve the relationship just by being present without saying a single word.
So if I'm coherent, my relationships get coherent. I really like that. Number 3 is work. And there is a phrase here I absolutely want to put on a t-shirt. It says, RH clears energetic parasites.
A very vivid image, isn't it?
Energetic parasites that block potential.
In a career context, think of those parasites as self-doubt imposter syndrome, or just the accumulated stress of doing work you fundamentally hate. The source says that clearing these blockages accelerates your alignment with your true life path or vocation. It aligns you with what Jung would call your true purpose.
It's like clearing the static on the radio so you can finally hear the song you're supposed to be playing.
Precisely. Number 4 is nature and art. This seems a bit softer at first, but the source gets very specific. It talks about perceiving beauty.
Perceiving geometric water patterns, it says.
It links back to that luminous state we mentioned. When your consciousness expands, you literally perceive more of reality. The source suggests you start to see the math in a flower, the underlying order in the chaos. You become more tuned in to the profound beauty of the world simply because your own internal instrument is finally in tune.
And finally, number 5, philosophy or religion.
The source puts it beautifully here. It says true healing requires a trust list. It's about viewing the individual as a reflection of the cosmic hologram.
The cosmic hologram. That sounds like a sci-fi novel.
It does, but it just means realizing that you are not just a tiny, isolated fragment fighting for survival in a hostile universe. You are an integral piece of the whole, and you contain the information of the whole within you. Trusting that universal intelligence is a necessary part of the healing process.
And that leads us to the ultimate destination of all this. In Jungian psychology, the ultimate goal is the self, individuation. How does the source define the self in these energetic terms?
It defines a self as universal coherence.
Universal coherence.
It is the totality of the psyche, achieving full, complete alignment with universal light and information. It's when the persona, the mask is dropped, the shadow, the blockage is integrated, and the entire system is flowing perfectly with the universe. You aren't just a person in the universe anymore. You are a coherent expression of the universe.
That is a massive shift in perspective. We've gone from, I need to fix my daily anxiety, to I am aligning with universal coherence.
And yet the source essentially suggests they are the exact same task.
Okay, let's unpack this for the listener who wants to actually take this off the whiteboard and put it into their life today. We promised a way to apply this. Based on the logic of the source, how do we start this alchemy?
I think we can distill this entire philosophy into 3 actionable steps directly from the mechanics we've discussed.
Lay them on us. Step 1.
Notice the resistance. We talked about the persona and the shadow. In your daily life, start to identify where you feel those restrictive social resonances. Where are you faking it? Where do you feel physical tension or a biofunctional disruption when you merely think about a certain topic or a person?
So spot the static. Don't just ignore the tightness in your chest or your stomach.
Exactly. Acknowledge that these aren't just annoying, fleeting thoughts. They are literal, energetic blockages. Noticing them is the first step of individuation.
What's step 2?
Stop directing and start witnessing. This is by far the hardest one, especially for high achievers. Adopt the stance of the reconnective healing facilitator in your own life. When you find a problem, a relationship issue, a health snag, don't immediately try to fix it with rituals or force. Don't direct the energy.
So what do I do? Just look at it.
Just look at it. Simply observe and witness the issue without any judgment. Give it attention without intention. The source suggests that this act of pure observation, much like in quantum physics, is what actually allows the frequency to shift. If you judge it by saying, I hate this anxiety, you lock it in place. If you just witness it by saying, I see this anxiety, you allow it to move.
Wow. And step 3.
Trust the entrainment. Allow your system to move from entropy and chaos to coherence and order naturally. You have to trust that your true self is always trying to align with universal information. You don't have to build the order from scratch. The order is already there. You just have to stop interrupting it with your own chaos.
That is deeply liberating. It completely takes the pressure off. I don't have to be the architect of my own healing. I just have to be the open window.
Precisely. You are becoming the passive facilitator for your own life's coherence.
Before we go, I want to leave you listening with one final thought that really stuck with me from the time dilation section of the source.
Oh yeah, go for it.
We talked about how people in these high coherence healing sessions feel like 45 minutes is only 5 minutes. Time literally collapses when you're in that luminous state.
Which naturally raises a really profound question about the inverse of that experience.
Right. If we are living our everyday lives in high stress, low frequency persona modes, are we just dragging through time?
It suggests that low frequency expands the perception of time. Are we aging faster, feeling more exhausted, and feeling like the workday drags on for an absolute eternity simply because our frequencies are out of tune?
Are we literally dragging ourselves through the entropy?
It forces you to consider that living in alignment, in true coherence, isn't just about being happy or healthy. It might actually be about stepping out of the painful grind of linear time itself.
That is definitely something to think about the next time you're stuck in traffic and it feels like it's been 1,000 years. Maybe check your resonance.
Indeed. Stay coherent.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. This was a heavy one, but hopefully you feel a little lighter now. We'll catch you on the next one.